Nice. Looks like the streams are very nicely synced, so going forward, looks like Biso's having a good time getting through with those extra mini turbos. And this is one track that is very intensive as far as mini turbos go. You're always wanting to stay right next to that fencing area, going around each part of the stage where there is a turn, and then down the long straightaway, just snaking in between all of those trucks and buses. Essentially, you can use the mushrooms in any turn that you want. They're essentially going to save about the same amount of time. So you do want to just make sure that you do use them, because sometimes it is easy to forget and be like, oh no, I'm on the last, finally on the last turn, and just not even use them. So both players having, despite looking like the movement differences, looks like Brian is ahead just very slightly. Bisso riding against the fence here is going to slow him down quite a bit. So this is one track where, even though it is a little bit longer for a Mario Kart track, it will, any mistake like that where you lose that much time is going to mean a lot. One big thing about going down the big straightaways, sometimes it can be tough to get into the straight stretch mini turbo, because sometimes your kart won't quite tilt all the way just because of the uneven ground. Bisso using his second mushroom there. Oh, and using his third right before the last lap, 51.81, 51.07. So Brian actually has quite a sizable lead thanks to all of the fencing bump that Bisso has had. Just right around the second lap, there's a part where the bus is right next to the fencing area. So it's a very small window where you can glide through without touching it, but it looks like it had slowed him down considerably. One thing to note about the differences in the players, one player is playing on the American NTSC version, and Bisso on the right here is playing in Japanese. So you'll hear both of the different voice acting for each one, and you'll also see that Bisso plays zoomed out, whereas Brian, oh, hitting the truck. Oh my gosh! But Bisso hitting the tanker at the same time. Wow. They probably both thought that they lost at that very moment. But Brian pulling ahead with the 236.86, Bisso trailing with the 238.59. Right at the end, it could have gone for either one if they would have just missed the truck or the bus, or the tanker there. So bear with me just a moment here. And that brings up Brian. One race to Bisso 0. Very interesting start, considering that they both hit a moving object at the end. That's really weird, because even despite Bisso hitting all of those fencing areas, bumping it just a little bit more time each time, they could have gone either way. And Brian is going to choose to go to DK Jungle Parkway, a great track to really start it off. Because it is a very high variance, many areas where you can lose time, falling off into the water, staying onto the grassing area for too long. All right, both players are ready, and we'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, great syncing. Nothing really to do there. So this is one track where, because the game will actually run smoother when you are zoomed out. We'll see, even though it'll seem like one character is necessarily getting ahead of each other, the timing is actually slowed down for Brian's screen because he plays zoomed in, which means that there's more lag produced in the game. The times will be similar in as far as if they drove perfectly, but we'll see him, even if he was ahead, it could even look like he was behind. Bisso had a much better jump over the water that first lap, so he is most definitely ahead. So we just kind of have to think about what kind of mistakes have they made in between. Bisso falling down in the cave. Brian is actually saving his mushroom and getting up there, 40.61 to Bisso 43.51. So he's fallen a few seconds behind, despite that big gap in the timing after the jump. So Brian going much more to the right. It doesn't really save as much time as if you want to go all the way to the left, but it does come at the cost of possibly falling in the water. So Bisso losing a few seconds. It might seem like he's catching up, quote unquote, to Brian, but because Brian's game is much laggier, being zoomed in, it might seem like he's pulling ahead, but he's really not. Because as you can see on the timer, Brian's pulling ahead with about a 121, and Bisso's rolling across with a 124. So he's still a few seconds behind, despite that. So it's really Brian's race to lose at this point. All he has to do is just not fall in the drink and don't tumble in the cave, like it is so easy to do. Xander, let me pull up the... I believe Bisso is in about rank 88, and I know Brian is somewhere in the range of 145. So Brian rolling across 20073, and even though it seemed like they were about the same, it was 20391 just due to the lag. And I'll answer any questions in just a moment. And that pulls up Brian 2-0 in this first set. And yes, Toad, Peach, and Yoshi do have all of the same lightweight class speed. So as long as you're choosing one of those, you will be playing as the fastest characters in the game. Which one you choose is completely up to you. Personally, I am a Toad player. And Bisso would like to go to Koopa Troopa Beach. So we're going to see some crabs, cave jump, and some mountains too. Alright, both players are ready. I'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so both players are going to rocket start, go around the corner, and then it's a pretty tight few mini turbos to get around this this bit of land right here. Brian going over the ramp will actually lose a little bit of time just due to it slowing you down quite a bit. Both players making it into the cave cleanly. Brian having not a clean exit, however, bumping the wall. So his mushroom is going to be a little bit more wide, and he misses a mini turbo. 27.43, trailing with the 28.28. So Bisso is pulling ahead ever so slightly, just about a second, and some change. We'll see where both players lie coming through the next. Oh wow, Bisso missing the cave entrance. He's actually going to turn around and go around and try to make the backup. Makes the backup on pretty much the first try, but Brian's going to pull ahead 28.08, and Bisso's going to trail this lap with 32.93. So Brian is ahead by about 3 seconds since he was trailing. Again, a second and some change going into the second lap. But anyone's game, really, as one mistake like that will just throw it right back in the other favor. So Brian not choking this time and pulling ahead. Bisso also making it into the cave. All he has to do is just cross and he's set. Nicely done, Brian. 124.39, and Bisso trailing with the 128.03, which is gonna pull Brian ahead 3-0, potentially a set point for Brian here. Again, this is 3 sets out of 5. Nicely done. All right, very strong lead by Brian today. And then it is also his pick as well, so he could just finish up this set really nicely if he chooses. However, one stipulation is that whatever track each respective player chooses, they can't choose that track again until the end of the second set. So those picks will reset after the end of the second set, and they'll be able to choose again. Brian choosing to go to Bowser's Castle. So if you have Abney Marty, feel free to just toss one right into chat there. Both players are ready. I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. This track is a personal favorite of mine. It features Marty, who is locked up in the corner of Bowser's Castle right at the beginning, and of course the many thwomps that are traveling throughout all of the inside of the castle. Make up for some very, very interesting blockades. So we'll see in here, there's two thwomps that follow you. So there's an added disadvantage to the one-try league in that we don't allow the usage of ghosts during it. Bisso falling behind, he's hit two thwomps just right inside lap 1. Brian having a very clean lap, looking really good on this. So normally in a time trial scenario, you can pre-set a ghost that just sits in the corner of that second room at Bowser's Castle, and it'll distract those two thwomps that you saw Bisso hit right at the beginning, and they'll follow that ghost and just sit in the corner and not follow you. So you only have to go through where Brian is now and just get between those two thwomps at the end of that second room. So it does make it very difficult if you're used to having that ghost in the normal scenario when we're practicing time trials, and then because the pattern is back and forth, they pretty much will land on you if you don't go well out of your way. Brian having some great laps here, finishing out with 39.38 second lap. Bisso having a little bit better of a second lap. He's going to trail behind about a second in that lap, 40.58. So it's really Brian's race to lose. Bisso hitting a third thwomp. The room where Brian is now, those last couple, sometimes they can just be in some really nasty spots. So it can be kind of a crapshoot, and you really gotta commit to where you're going in that room if you're even just a little bit off on your time. Another thing to note based on that timing is that those thwomps will always be in the same spot. Nice work by Brian. Great lap. Getting the stairs mini turbo, which is very tough to set up. It's a very tight, narrow window to get that. 156.43 is gonna settle out this set. 205.71 trailing. And that is Brian 4-0, takes the first set. The loser of the previous set will be up to choose next, so Bisso will choose the first track of set 2. And we're going to Moo Moo Farm, everybody's non-favorite track. And I'll explain why. Both players are ready, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And yeah, so two major reasons why Moo Moo Farm is very tough. One being a very short track. The timing has gotten very low recently, and getting a good fast lap requires going between the moles, which are popping up in a random interval. Let me sync that up just minorly. And you can go over any of those molehills that we're seeing them pass on the left, and there's a very high chance that one will pop up while you roll over it. So the more you roll over, the lower the chance that you're going to complete without hitting a mole. Now, they get caught into a catch-22, Brian hitting a mole, of wanting to roll between those hills to take a tighter line to get to the finish line, but also risking it because it's so easy just to go a little bit too wide, a little bit too narrow, and because of the uneven grounding, which is the second big reason, it makes it really hard to maneuver properly. So a lot of times it's very easy to make a mistake and roll over and hit another mole. Bisso looking good in this one. So this is a track that players usually want to pick when they want to just hopefully hit less moles, or hit no moles. Brian hitting a third mole. It's about my average for this stage as well, so I can relate. So if your opponent has hit a mole or two, you can go a little bit more outside, and still Brian going for the hat trick, hitting 4 moles in 3 laps. Bisso will take this one, first blood, 116.77 to 123.91. Nicely done. Bisso is up 1 track to 0 for Brian. Brian choosing Luigi Raceway as the next track. Which is pretty much just kind of the opposite of the track that we just saw. Both players are ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Luigi Raceway being a track where any even small mistake will cost a lot of time. Essentially, most players will do what's called a 1-2-0 shroom strat, meaning they use 1 shroom in the first lap, 2 shrooms in the second, and then none, just going around the normal way for the final lap. So both players are going to use the boost at the beginning with a mini turbo charging up while they're riding that boost. And essentially, you do want to feather out, kind of space out those mini turbos going around that first turn, just so that you're not doing it too often. Because doing too many mini turbos can sometimes be against you, because you need to glide out the speed boost that you get from the mini turbo. So you saw both of the players, Bisso pulling ahead just by a small amount, just about 0.2. You see them use that first mushroom, ride the wall, and then they're charging up a mini turbo at the same time, and they let the boost of the mini turbo out right at the end of the first mushroom, and it gives you a little mystery boost as you hit the wall, releasing that mini turbo. So they're able to get back to the road a little bit quicker. This time they're going to use 2 mushrooms, one while they get to the wall, and then the second one to go cleanly back onto the racetrack. 32.95. Brian just trailing just a little bit behind, about a half second. And then in this final lap, no more shrooms, so essentially the task is to stay as close as you can to the side, going around the turns, charging up the mini turbos, just trying not to hit the grass or the dirt, as it does slow you down considerably. Bisso hitting the dirt just a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it's going to slow him down enough to make the difference here. So he's going to roll over, 140.88. Brian trailing with the 141.68. Bisso coming back in set 2. And he is now up 2-0. Nicely done. And it's now going to be Bisso's pick. And we're going to Royal Raceway, another mid-range track with a lot of skill involved, both with the 180 turn and then the mushroom spots are pretty nice. Both players are ready. I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So we have seen a bit of back and forth, but Brian will get to choose one more track, even if he loses this one. Let's sync those back up there. So Bisso running into the grass a little bit, a couple times. It's going to slow him down. So this 180 right here is a big way to either gain or lose time. Bisso looks like his was just slightly better, but they both had a pretty good jump. Essentially, you want to cut that grass right next to that pink checkered wall, just so that you just barely make it over around that corner. But if you cut it too shallowly, it will take up some of your speed just due to the incline of it. So it does make or break many runs, and it is a pain just to get to lap 3 of your PR run, just to either hit the wall or lose all your time. Bisso hitting the grass a couple times. Looks like he was ahead ever so slightly. Brian just barely behind at the moment. Bisso having a fantastic jump. You can see the huge difference there. Brian didn't have necessarily a bad one. I would call that about average. You can do way worse than that jump, undoubtedly. Both players zooming around, using the mushroom. Very great spot. And then they charge up too many turbos. Brian having a little trouble. He'll just do one. So Bisso's going to land first. Brian's trailing just about, maybe about a second at the moment. Brian not hopping over the grass. It does slow him down just a little bit. So 48.94. Brian about a half second. But any one of these turns could do it. This 180 could slow him down. Bisso having another fantastic jump. You can see Brian, as it pulled him a little bit more to the left, it did take a little bit of that speed. Final shroom. Bisso having a good time. Brian cutting just a little bit better than Bisso, it looked like. Good landing. A couple bounces right at the end there. He does lose just a little bit of time hitting that bounce, doing the jump. But Bisso will pull ahead, 2:27.37. Brian trailing with the 2:28.53. And that pulls up Bisso 3-0. Brian's pick on the next one, we can see if he can perform the coveted reverse sweep. Looks like he's really thinking about it, and I'm wondering if he's gonna choose Yoshi Valley, because it would be a spot where, with the variance of the spinies, potential to fall off, that he could start to make the comeback. Oh, and he's choosing Sherbet Land, also a great pick. So we have some jumping over the water, trying to get in between the penguins, which are in a cycle. Both players are ready, and I'll choose 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I think I synced them up right. We'll check that in a moment. Anyways, so you'll see the players use some mini turbos to get over the corner crack jumps, which can be really tricky. But the cave is where it really gets interesting, as the penguins are on a cycle and they're circling around those pillars. And if they're in an unfavorable spot, you can really run the risk of hitting a penguin. So any kind of time gain or time loss does put them a bit off on the cycle. Or where, rather, the cycle is the same, but where you are is different. So coming around, both players having a pretty good, pretty comparable first lap here. It looks like Bisso has pulled ever so slightly ahead. He's going to enter the cave second lap. Actually, it looks like they're pretty much the same here, using the second mushroom. Brian hitting the wall a little bit. He's going to get a little bit off track. Bisso having a clean second lap here. We're going to go on the inside. Brian's going to be forced to go on the outside of those penguins now that he's behind the cycle. 33.47 to 34.47, so he lost an entire second in that second lap there. So the cut where they hop over the corner of the water, the further out that you jump over it, the more time you save. However, sometimes it's very easy to not hop and just fall right in the water. Both players having a good third lap. Brian just having to cut a little bit weird around the penguins, but he will trail behind. Bisso coming through with the 140.45 and Brian 142.32. So we just saw the old back and forth, and these sets are now 1-1. And Bisso driving so well that he actually had a number 2 time on his Japanese kart. Nicely done. So 4-0, Bisso will take that one. 1 set to 1 set, and all the tracks will now reset. So all of the picks are now open to each of the players once again. And Brian has chosen to do Mario Raceway, which is a very short track, very fast paced. And both the players are ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So very fast-paced track. There is a Mario Ghost trying to set the pace, and we're going to be going much faster than Mario. There's a mushroom cut where you want to cut on the inside of the mushroom, going through some piranha plants. It's very tight window. Takes a long time to get even decent at that. Both players are going to use the start boost to hop over the grass, and coming up on the first mushroom cut here. So you're going to go on the inside to the left. Neither player really hitting the piranha plant, but Brian having a much cleaner time getting through. So they're going to cut through the grass using the mushroom on the first lap here. And then you do a mini turbo and hop around the corner. Brian 25.28, Bisso trailing with the 26.26. So yeah, he did hit the wall a little bit, but he didn't spin out, which is good. Brian just shuffling through. Bisso about the same, having a much better second lap over the first. Gonna hop around the corner, use the mushroom to cut across the grass and the dirt to get into the pipe, and then one last mini turbo hopping around the corner. 25.28, Bisso trailing much closer, 25.37. So he's still about 1 second behind. The last mushroom cut, Brian going right through Bisso as well. It would take one major mistake from Brian for him to take it. Looks like he's having a pretty clean time getting over the grass. Bisso will trail in this one. Both players hopping around the corner, 115.70, and Bisso trails with the 116.78. Brian has first blood in set 3. Boom. There it is, 1-0. Brian up with the advantage, and it is now Bisso's pick. Once again, to reiterate to everybody who may not have been here during the intro, Bisso has now picked Choco Mountain. This is the last week of our normal season, so we will be going to the playoff matches following the Christmas break. So right around the beginning of the year, I believe first week of January. So keep an eye out for us. We'll be back for that. Both players are ready, and we'll be counting down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I'll reiterate the rules here. This is a best 3 sets out of 5 to win the match, and to determine a set is a best 4 out of 7 races. So this is another track with low variance. Even just improving just a few hundredths of a second can be to a great advantage of ranks. So Brian electing to save the first mushroom, Bisso using it around the second corner, which is a very typical corner to use it. You can also use it around the one of the final turns of the lap. Bisso hitting the wall and just getting pulled outside of his maneuvering. So Brian is going to pull ahead using that mushroom around that lap. Both players getting good hills meaning that they rode the back of the second hill and got launched out over the third. Brian pulling ahead by 0.3. So it is very minute differences, very small maneuvering differences that make a huge difference here, as you can see. So just Bisso hitting the wall and getting forced to the right a little bit did make a huge difference. Wow, both players having great hills again. 33.14 to 33.57 about ties it up. Both players not having any mushrooms left. Using it right after the beginning of the lap is a great way to use it. So it looks like Bisso is hugging the wall just a little bit further. He's just barely pulling ahead. Like I said, it's very minimal, but you can see how even just a slight difference in handling will have a huge effect on where you lie. Alright. Wow. Bisso having good hills. Brian hitting the back, and he still takes it 140.39 to 140.48. Wow, nice race, guys. That's the closest we've had yet. Very nicely done. And in a tiebreaker set nonetheless. So that pulls up Brian 2-0, and it is now Bisso's pick. Excuse me, it's Brian's pick. Pardon. And we're gonna go to Wario Stadium next, the second longest track in the entire game. And both players are ready, and I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And Wario Stadium is one of those tracks where there's many unique places where you need to be right up against the wall. It's very easy to make a mistake and lose the run. So another one of those tracks where, because it is a little bit longer, you have so many chances to make a mistake any of these laps, just because there's so many unique spots where you can do it. A few mini turbos to get around the first. Normally you want to hop to kind of hit the ground a little bit sooner, but you can hit the top of that hill and slow yourself down as well. So you're pretty much going to be doing a lot of mini turbos around corners. There's tons of turns in this. Using the mini turbo to get over that hill, it's very nice stuff, nicely done. And the mushroom spot coming up right here, you're going to turn, use the mushroom, and you can either lose or save a lot of time depending on how closely you do that mushroom up against the wall. Because you're doing it so tightly, it's very easy to hit that wall, tumble, and you pretty much lose the run at that very moment. Oh, I can't say pretty much, because you will lose the run there. And yes, agreeing with JTW1, the higher ranked time trials player is favored on this. But yes, I do agree. Brian has had a very good set of times on the One Try League using this, just because it is a longer track. Normally, a higher ranked player is going to have the advantage, just due to very varying differences in maneuverability. That being, not going wide with the mushroom, staying right next to the wall without bumping it, doing all the mini turbos. It is very easy to go ham on this and just go a little bit too far and maneuver to hit the wall. So there is kind of like a balance you try to strike, especially in a one-try league where one mistake is going to give it to the other player. Bisso having a great mushroom right up against the wall. Brian is just barely trailing behind him. So just say that we've already been 2 minutes in and they're pretty much neck and neck. Does say a lot about these players and how well they are driving. So yeah, you can see just those little wall bumps do make a huge impact. Just because, for a course that is so long, a few here, a few there, a little wide mini turbo, a little bit wide on the mushroom. It does all add up. So Bisso having just about a 0.3 advantage on that lap. But like we said, any mistake can throw it right back into Brian's favor. Even just a difference in the mushroom strat, being right next to the wall, going wide, couple wall bumps, it all could come back right in Brian's favor. Both players getting over those hills. Last mushroom, Bisso taking an aggressive angle, going all the way on the inside. Brian a little bit safer, but no major mistakes from either player leading up to this point, which is amazing. And barring any kind of major mistake, major wall bump, tumble for any bad reason, it looks like Bisso will take this and take a track in set 3 here. Brian doing the pre-jump to get all the way down, taking the inside angle. Both very good driving for both of these players. Bisso rolling over, 3:45.49. Brian right behind him, about a half second, 3:46.03. And that'll bring it 2-1, Brian's favor. And we're going back to Royal Raceway. Bisso has chosen to go back to Royal Raceway. And both players are ready. And we'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So now we start to get into an interesting spot where both players have already played Royal Raceway, so now they're a little bit warmed up on this track, so we'll see if there's going to be a huge difference in gameplay. Yes, there are some notable differences between the US and the JP version, but during time trials there is no difference. If they were playing the Grand Prix mode, there are some skips that you can use in the Japanese version, the 1.1 version, that you can't use in the US version. So if you have caught an Abney 317 stream and you've seen him do the Luigi Raceway strat where you use the Lakitu to trick the game into thinking that you've essentially rolled over the finish line when you haven't, and you actually went backwards, hitting yourself over the wall with some red shells. That is one trick that you can only do in the Japanese version, but in the realm of just time trials, there is no difference other than the language difference one, and then the voice actor difference. So Brian, after the first lap, is just trailing just a little bit more than a second. 180 turn. Bisso having a great time getting over. Brian about the same. Nothing too large of a difference there. Looks like Bisso had a much cleaner mushroom. He waited a little bit longer. You kind of want to wait until you're almost passing the wall nearly to hit the shroom and zoom right across. Brian hitting it just a little bit early. Bisso pulling ahead, 48.71. Brian trailing by just about a couple seconds overall now. You definitely tell Bisso, wow, Bisso actually hitting the wall and tipping the cart. Getting that close is so dangerous because if he would have turned just a little bit sooner, he would have been trapped on the near side of the wall and would have given up the race. But he actually had it right on the edge of the cart and still tipped his way across. That's crazy. So this is looking, barring any kind of major mistake, Bisso is going to tie this up right now. That's amazing. Nice time. 2:26.45 to 2:28.54. Is that a PR? Is that a real PR? I can't pull up the times page at the moment, but very nice driving, especially in a one try scenario. That's amazing. And that will tie it up. 2 tracks to 2 in set 3. Brian is gonna take us back to DK Jungle Parkway. And both players are ready, so we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. And I will reiterate again, because Brian does play zoomed in, the game actually does create a little bit of extra lag on a track like this where there are a lot of moving parts, such as the water wheel, the boats rather. Both players taking very modest jumps over because going way too far to the left, even though it saves a lot of time, if you go a little bit too far, you will fall in the water, which rips the run, essentially. So it will be a little bit tougher to know who is ahead. We have to just kind of keep track of what kind of mistakes they make. Like I said, Brian, even though it looks like, or rather, if it looks like Bisso's a little bit ahead because Brian's game is lagging, it's actually due to him being zoomed in versus Bisso zoomed out. So you could actually see that even though Bisso had pulled ahead, Brian having a better shroom strat in lap 1, he was ahead by about a second. Bisso looks like he had a bit better time after the second jump there, so he will probably about even out the time now. He does have to stay a little bit far ahead of Brian to even it out. $39.10. Brian with the 39.30. So it is about even as to where they are at. But if you check out the times between each one, you can see that Bisso's is a few seconds ahead of where Brian, but he's still ahead. Oh no! But Bisso not making it. So that is one big drawback of trying to go too far. And even if you try to go too far to the left, hitting the wall will slow you down, and you won't be able to make it as far over the water. So he did hit and not make it over. So Brian just has to make it up over the cave, and he is set. He'll pull through with the 20002. Bisso using the final shroom to get up over the cave. Trailing with the 21096. And Brian is going to be at advantage point. Potential set point for him. And yeah, it was very close leading up into that before the jump that fell into the water. It was actually looking to be about neck and neck. So Brian up 3-2. Bisso is going to take us back to Moo Moo Farm. One where he could potentially just tie this up. We'll see how the moles are doing this time. Both players are ready. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, making it all that way to lap 3 and then dropping it is upsetting. Even outside of a one-try league and you're just trying to go for a personal record. Can be very upsetting just because you have to go very far to the left to get a large time gain, and then obviously the potential just to lose it. So both players are going to mini turbo coming around the first bend, avoiding the moles. And things don't really get hairy until the second and third set of moles here, because you do want to go to the right of the second set and then mushroom as tightly as you can. Brian going over a molehill, and then both players electing to go the safe route, going around. If you try to go between the molehills using the mushroom, you'll save a ridiculous amount of time. So if all things were equal and they both one went safe and one went a little bit riskier, the person that went riskier, as long as they didn't hit a mole, would gain a large amount of time. Wow. Both players have rolled over moles. Bisso shrooming under the final corner, but Brian hitting one. He's going to pull ahead by about 1.1 seconds. That was crazy luck, because every time you roll over one, it's a large percentage chance that mole's going to pop out. Insane, because there are ways like that where you can just avoid the mole just by it being too far up. Brian hitting the second mole, having a better time this time, but Bisso is going to pull ahead 116.86 to 119.15. All right, very interesting. So we are now 3-3. This is the final race of this set. We'll see who's gonna take it. One thing I actually haven't mentioned yet that JTW1 has mentioned is the Joker. So each player can use any one race in the entirety of this match to designate one as to play as a shortcut. So Brian is actually going to use his Joker to play DK Jungle Parkway shortcut. So we're going to see this one hopefully go way faster. Both players are ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So normally, instead of driving over the track, they're actually going to turn around immediately at the beginning. And what's going to happen is that they need to line it up such that they're going to clip through a corner of the wall, and in doing so, they're going to cross over where the finish line is. And while they cross over that line, they're going to fall back into the cave, which is going to skip a lap. Now, two things can happen. One, we saw Brian. One, well, I guess we'll see them both happen. They can fall through, go over the lap marker, and then fall through the wall to go to what's normal for the water, which is below every track. So even if you hit the water, you're still okay, because as you can see, you still have crossed over that threshold to get to the next lap. There are some lines that you can take where it's not going to count the lap marker, so you do have to go aggressively. Brian falling in between, coming back into the cave. He's going to take it. Very nicely done. 43 flat. Bisso trailing. It looks like he had fallen in the water a couple times. And yeah, great third lap. Looks 6:24. Bisso not making it through. So that's one thing. You do have to get all the way to where the corner of the jungle is, but if you're too far to the right, it's going to pop you right into the jungle. But if you're too far to the left, it's not going to count the lap. So as you can see, even falling in the water, it's still good enough. It counted the lap, and he's going through. So it is tough to do. Brian making it look effortless. Very nicely done. So that is Joker's Brian. Excuse me, Brian's Joker for the match, and he took it, which is going to settle him up for the second set. So he's up 2-1. Bisso now trailing behind. He's going to be able to take the first pick of the next set. They need a little bit of time in order to get ready for the next set. So they are taking a break. So I'll just kind of shout out the things that are coming up. One, MarioKart64.com is the website where you can go to submit your times. If you'd like to begin, we have plenty of players that are currently active, and I would say right about 50 to 70 people active at any given time. So the community is very active. You'd think for a game of this age, there'd be no way, but lots of new players climbing the ranks even as we speak. So if you are interested, you can see the times pages. We have right around, I want to say about 1,200 people that are ranked. So plenty of competition, undoubtedly. And then, like I had said before, this match is in the final week of our normal season, and the playoff match of the best players from all of our previous matches will be going head to head. Touche. So yeah, we do have our Discord link in the description, and you can see kind of the standings of our times trials page on the website. Thank you. Just Bisso is back. We're just waiting on Brian Ray. And interestingly enough, we're going to start out this match, or rather this set, with Yoshi Valley. Both players are ready, so we'll begin them in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, and Brian misses the start boost, interestingly enough, but Bisso hits the wall. Brian hitting the spiny. This is a very interesting start to Yoshi Valley. Brian hitting a second spiny, so Bisso will pull ahead. The hairpin jump is an acceptable jump as far as non-shortcut is concerned. So as far as our rule set, it is allowed arbitrarily. Both players having a really strange start to this. Oh, but Bisso hitting the spiny and falling off. Huge time loss. Brian hitting another spiny, but he will actually pull ever so slightly ahead. And much agreed with what JTW is saying. The riskier strats to get through those spinies really makes it tough in a one-try scenario, because obviously you can't just reset. So more often than not, if you hit one spiny, those tracks are off. Bisso hitting another one and going off again. It's going to be Brian's race to lose at this point. Looks like he's made it cleanly over. So yes. Because the spinies are on a set cycle, hitting one early on, you're not going to know where they're going to be after that. So you have to play pretty cleanly to know where they're going to be up until lap 3. Lap 3 is where it usually gets a little bit dicey. But both players having a strange start put them in some really weird situations. Brian pulling ahead with about a 10-second lead. Very interesting, Yoshi Valley. Brian's going to pull up 1-0. Bisso's going to have to fire back, but it's going to be Brian's pick going in here now. Going to have to choose very carefully because Brian can win the whole match in this set. And it looks like we're going back to Bowser's Castle. Great pick by Brian as he did pull ahead by a lot. But now that we have had one of these races under our belts, it could go either way. And both players are ready. Or are they? Okay. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So once again, Bowser's Castle. The Thwomps are on a set cycle, except for the 2 that follow you each lap. Normally, when you're using time trials normally, you'll have a ghost that sits in the corner and distracts those 2 Thwomps that they're going to have to avoid. So it does add a little bit of extra adrenaline rush to try and get around them. Brian hitting the bush with the mushroom is going to lose a little bit of time. And oh gosh, I think we are off on the... I'm going to pause Brian just for a moment. So now they're a little bit more in sync. I think he's still ahead by about a second. There we go. So now we look a little bit better here. 38.25. Brian trailing with the 39.04. There we go. So now, as you can see, Bisso has pulled ahead just a little bit, and both players. Ooh, but Brian hitting the Thwomps at the end there. Depending on the time of your first lap, one will be down or one will be up. So you always want to kind of know which one that will be. But really tough to know when you're used to just playing at your most optimal level, just resetting if you've lost a little bit of time. So Bisso will pull ahead in this one. So much like how we had seen Bisso hit a few Thwomps last time, now that he's got one under his belt, he's probably going to play much cleaner than the first time. So Brian is going to trail by a few seconds, going on the inside of the bush, but hitting the wall. Bisso going to the right of the Thwomps at the end of the hallway, and then this is the crapshoot is the last Thwomps, especially when you're behind on time. Both players getting through with ease, but Bisso is set to take this one. So it'll be 1-1 here in set 4. And pulling through with the 156.16. Brian's going to trail with the 203.50. Nicely done. Alright, and Bisso up to choose next. He chooses Calamari Desert. Surprised that we haven't seen this one yet. And count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this one, much like these other moving obstacle like courses, the train is on a set schedule, or a set cycle rather. So you want to get through these laps in a certain amount of time, otherwise it will be in your way for all subsequent laps. So at the beginning they're going to go to the left immediately, and they're going to use a mushroom to go around the mountain area here, a couple mini turbos to get back onto the road here. The road at this point is very thin, so it's really tough to do the straight stretch mini turbos. So it's very easy to lose time just by not charging up the mini turbo properly. Both players are going to save the last mushroom for a later lap, because they know that they're in a spot where they've gone fast enough in the first lap to beat the train in the second lap. So being able to make it by about, I would say 35.5 seconds would probably be around the cutoff time where you're not going to be able to beat the train. Both players have that little extra second, so you can see Brian had a little bit closer time. You can see the front of the train on his screen as he comes across. Both players are going to use the mushroom to get over the dirt area to get back onto the road. So now they know that they are set up on just the right timing. Even though Brian is a little bit behind, he's still in a good spot. But Bisso is going to pull ahead, 35.76. Brian trailing just behind a quarter of a second. And you can tell when you're right coming over those tracks and the back of the train is very close by, that you have plenty of time to take the best path. Brian just having to go a little bit outside. You can see that he had to turn kind of around it to make sure that he didn't get hit by the train. Getting hit by the train means that you crash twice, so it'll knock you up once, and the train is so long it'll knock you up a second time, losing a ridiculous amount of time. Bisso is going to roll ahead, 147.61. Brian trailing with the 148.91. So Bisso is going to come into an advantage here. Great time, 147.61. And pulling ahead at this point means that could be set up to take this set, but we'll see what kind of picks that they have left, since they picked a lot of really good tracks in set 3. Once again, every 2 sets they can only choose a track once. They can't both choose, let's say, Calamari does it in the same set as well. So these are spread out very nicely, but if this does go into another set, both of those picks will reset. Brian taking us back to Luigi Raceway. Waiting for both players to ready up. Okay. All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so once again, this is a heavily grinded track. Both players kind of having a tough start, rolling over the dirt area. So being a heavily ground track, we'll see that any kind of mistake is going to have a large variance in their times here. Normally, any kind of mistake is an automatic reset. Using the first mushroom to get around, you can see them both bonk the wall as they're charging that mini turbo. Hitting the wall releasing the mini turbo and being at the end of the mushroom will generate what's called a mystery boost, and for some reason you speed up a little bit more than usual to get back onto the racetrack. Besides that, it's just feathering out a mini turbo every couple seconds, making sure that you glide out the mini turbos as much as you can, because you're going to save the most amount of time getting the boost, the maximum value of the boost by driving forward. So untilting right away and straightening yourself out makes a huge difference. Bisso pulling ahead by about 0.4, but having some trouble with some maneuvering. Hitting the dirt is going to slow him down. So you can see little things like that, little mistakes like that cost a ridiculous amount of time for this track. This is another one of those tracks where, let's say if you save 0.02 on your time, you can pass 6 to 8 people very easily. So both players pretty much neck and neck as far as I can see. Brian hitting the dirt rather a little bit. Wow. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Brian pulling ahead 141.16 to 141.38. Wow. He's going to tie this set up 2-2. Very interesting. He could close it out. Possibilities are endless. That was almost a heavy choke, but he got it. All right. And Bisso is going to take us back to Koopa Troopa Beach. And a countdown in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so this is another one we saw Bisso give this track up to Brian by missing the cave. Missing the cave is huge. Even if you get the backup, which is just jumping back into the cave. Slow you down a little bit there. Missing the cave, even if you make the backup, you still lose about 4 or 5 seconds. So as long as you make it in the cave, the one strange thing about the cave when you're doing attempts is sometimes you can get into your own head about it, and then it causes you to miss it a lot more often, just due to small maneuvering errors. Bisso just barely ahead by 0.14. Very nice maneuvering by both of these players. So a lot of times when you are getting a little bit better at the game, you'll do a mini turbo off of the ramp into the cave, which you've seen some of the Division 1 players and Division 2 players do. It actually saves a very, very good amount of time, but it's very tough to be really consistent getting the mini turbo and not falling off. 28.10 to 28.86. Bisso pulls ahead. He's right about a second ahead now. Just shy of. You can see his mini turbos are just barely a little bit tighter, getting around that mountain area. The big. Oh wow. Okay, so both players making it in all three laps, but Bisso hit the wall and kind of bounced off there. Oh my gosh. Bisso going under the water, which loses a lot of time. Brian hitting the crab and going across and actually taking it 123.78 to 124.62 in the water. It'll take out all of your speed basically. It slows you down so much. And Brian is now set 3-2. Bisso needs some help here. Brian has his final, could be his final pick of the entire match if he takes it right here. Doesn't have the Joker, so he can't use anything for a shortcut play anymore. Brian asking for help in the chat. Jake responding with the Mario Raceway pick, which was to his advantage. The last time he did it, Bisso did hit the wall a couple times. Who knows what could happen? CC Matt calling out the Wario Stadium pick. Potentially could go that way too. Abney pulling out the Moo Moo Farm. Nobody agreeing with him. Alright, we're going spooky. Brian is hoping to close this out with a Banshee Boardwalk win here. Both players are ready. Or are they? And they are. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this track, as we have mentioned several times in the past few months, is very spooky. It has a bat house. It has some ghosts. What's not to love? It's a boardwalk. Oh, and don't forget about the big Cheep Cheep. So, this is a track where there are some parts of the boardwalk where there are no fencing area. So, overturning, underturning, hitting the wall and bouncing out, you can definitely fall and lose a lot of time. Brian has a little bit of trouble getting over the zigzag. I thought he was going to fall into the drink and give it up right there. Bisso pulling ahead with that maneuvering. So there's a big hole in the bat house where you can hop over it and glide into a mini turbo to kind of zigzag through the bat house. So Brian having a tough lap one. Bisso is going to pull ahead 36.03, trailing with the 37.28, so about a second and some change there. So yes, the zigzag is a really thin part of the boardwalk there, where it doesn't take much for you to really over or understeer. Brian hopping over but hitting the wall is going to bounce him back, losing about another half second. Bisso is having a very clean Banshee boardwalk. He's looking to strike back. 35.78, trailing with the 36.23, the half second. And yes, this is an OSHA nightmare, undoubtedly. Like who sanctioned this place? Bisso electing to do the drop shroom. Brian, oh, he drops, but as he hits the shroom, he hits the fence and takes all the speed away. Bisso, what do you? Somehow he made it in the corner, and he gives it up to Brian. Rest in peace. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. 150.34 is going to win the set and the match today. Oh my gosh, he had such an amazing race up until that point. I can't believe it. I did not expect that at all. I thought, I was like, oh, it's over. We're gonna go into race 7. Oh my gosh. So that will actually take it. Brian takes the third set. So he has bested Bisso 3-1 sets. Very good game, guys. GG. Great pick. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's over. I thought we were going into another set even. That was amazing. Yeah, good game to both the players. Great driving. I'm just like, I'm almost flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say, as that came to such a close so suddenly. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for Speed Gaming for hosting us for the Mario Kart 64 One Try League that we've had. Once again, I'm Haddock. I actually didn't even introduce myself. I am also a player, and I was also in Division 3, just like these players right here. but I am out of the playoffs. So after the Christmas holiday, we will be back for our playoffs. So we will be streaming on Speed Gaming in the coming days. Excuse me, in the coming weeks rather, since we have a couple weeks to give until the new year. So happy holidays to everybody. Be safe in your New Year's adventures, and we'll see you in 2020. Appreciate it, and have a great evening. Thank you.